Questions. We had some live right here on Facebook. Got another user submitted question here in one of our Facebook groups. Dan wants to know, we pay a percentage to our subcontract as the job is performed. Is there a way of generating a report showing the work a subcontractor has done? The problem is a lot of our jobs are uh, part of or on installment plans so basically they're doing an installment plan payment, fixed monthly payments. Customers and service autopilot generates the reports based on invoices. I need an inputted dollar amount inserted for those installment customers. Tired of using Google Sheets to come up with a subcontractor's payment. So Dan, the solution here to your problems of paying your subcontractors as a percentage of the work that's been completed, as well as the ones for installment plans, can actually really be easily tackled here. So I'm going to open up the screen and talk about how do we pay our contractors as a percentage of an invoice, a percentage of an installment for the jobs completed. And there's two different ways or three different ways we can tackle this. Dan's question is as a percentage of the invoice. We can do it as a fixed amount, or we can do it as a dollarly amount based on the budgeted time. Predominantly, it's going to be based on percentage of the invoice amount. So if you have multiple subcontractors and you have your more veteran subcontractors, Dan, getting paid at different rates or percentages, good news is I got a solution for you here. So typical fashion, I'm going to open up the screen and show you how to actually tackle this in Service Autopilot. And Dan wants to know, how do we pay that percentage of the invoice as a commission, and especially if it's on an installment plan. So we've got the question here from Dan, and I'm going to hop into Service Autopilot. What I'm going to do here is there's two things, Dan, that you really need to tackle up front. The first part of the question is he's using an installment plan to actually pay he's billing the client an installment plan, and he's paying the subcontractor percentage of each individual service or part of the services inside the installment plan. So, Dan, the first thing you want to do is go into Service Autopilot, add a contract. This can be done in V2 and V3. Where I do recommend V3 is going in to be able to apply the chart of accounts, the income. So if we've got our test client here, this is going to be our test installment. And then I'm going to actually open up the report and show you how this is in. We're going to have a start and end date. So Jan 1 to, let's say, December 31st. And we are going to have lawn mowing and our spring cleanup and our fall cleanup. Now, there could be some other ones in here, but if you were like myself at Callahan's Lawn Care, a lot of our services we did were actually subcontracted out based on different services. So the fall cleanup, we subcontracted most of those out to take the risk out of it, because we would actually go in and do a high-low pricing or a fixed price. The contractor was okay with that. So we did the lawn mowing and the fertilization in-house, but we de-risked some of those services that had open-ended things. So this is a great opportunity to talk about some methodology behind this. In addition to the default service, we're going to have to go in and actually create one service. So you may just have a maintenance service. But the downfall of V2 installments is you can only set a default service. So all the income is going to be applied to that default service. So if you want your chart of accounts, which I'm going to recommend using, go into V3 and set up each service that adds up into the installment. And that's going to give you a cleaner chart of accounts for accounting and when you add that to QuickBooks manually or through the sync. Let's say we go in and this is $1,000 a month contract. We're going to autofill that in. We're going to bill on the first day of the month. And I'm going to suggest maybe we bill one day in a month. And payment type is going to be credit card. We're going to auto-generate, activate, and include any sub-properties. So the part here, Dan, that you're missing before we get to your report, so we're going to go in and add our contract items here. And I'm going to add in our lawn mowing. And we can put the number of visits in here if we want. So my market, that's 28. And if it's part of an installment plan, if it's greater than or equal to, or actually greater than 28 visits, that contract may actually allow us to charge extra. So those are the things we want to put in there. So we're going to list all our services, then hit save. So Dan, I think the piece you may be missing is when we go in to add that lawn mowing, we should be driving it through a price matrix. We have budget, time, and cost. For the Facebook Live, I'm just going to put this in as a one-time or a reoccurring job. But hopefully we're going through a process through production rate based estimating. So our schedule here is I'm going to do a weekly Monday, and we've got our lawn mowing service, and automatically the rate of say $50 and 1 hour should load if we're using a price matrix. Now, the idea here, Dan, is I'm guessing based on your question is in my market, we're going to be probably starting the second week of April, and we'd start recurring on the second week of April. So that's how we would set this up. And why I'm looking at this part here is I want to set the foundations up for the report, because if this isn't set up, the data in the report is not going to be there. So good data in, good data out. SA, a lot of these softwares, no data in, no data out. So this is the foundation of the report, Dan, before we jump in there. So what we need to do is go in and set the contract of the test installment. And once we hit save, that rate and budgeted hours and the time, and you also obviously need to select a resource. So we'll go in and put Mo Crew number 6 in here. And once we hit save, that job now will be dispatched with the dollar amount and the budgeted time, but it will not bill because it's associated to this installment contract. That's the key that I'm assuming Dan is probably missing. Now, once that is set up and we've done that, we need to go in and we go to the report center. Under reports, report center. This is a pre-built report that we've built out for Simple Growth. This is a piece rate report, or it could also double as a subcontractor payment report. So if Chris here was one of our subcontractors, these are all the jobs, the start and stop times he had. We built some logic in there that we need to check the dollar amount because there wasn't one in this test account, or clock in or clock out time. And what we can do is go in and we can see the assigned resource or the assigned subcontractor. We can filter down based on job status. So that is exactly what Dan was talking about. We want to pay upon completed. So is there a status of completed? Who's the assigned resource? And the assigned resource, we have gone in and aggregated and grouped them together. And what we've got now is different pay rates, hourly, or percentages of the invoice that we would be paying on there. Now, you can see that some of these pay percentage of billable pay hours is 50%. That is when we have two employees that are splitting that time, or two subcontractors. So if we have two subcontractors that may be working together on a project, the ability to separate those out is available inside that report center when you build this custom level. So based on a hourly rate, based on budgeted time, we have up to 8 pay levels you'd put in, or percentages of the dollar. And this is the actual pay output for that subcontractor employee for that week, based on the work we've done and their payout, or of dollar amount per hour, or the percentage of the invoice. In this question, Dan, this would be the payout based on the level of percentage payout, which would be updated here. So this is something you can definitely build out yourself. If you're interested, Simple Growth does have this solution already turnkey for you. But the idea here is to go in and actually hit the basics and show you what to do if you're building this yourself. Main thing is we got to set up the installments, and inside the particular job, we assign it to the installment package and the contract, so it does not double bill. And when we do that, that dollar value of the job amount here will come in, and based on the assigned resource that we've grouped together, we know that it's assigned to the subcontractor or crew, and once the status is done. So we'd go in and automatically set a filter on this to run on a date range, or in this instance, a sliding date. Last week start, last week end, and we'd pay that subcontractor on a weekly or monthly basis. So comments, questions, drop below. Callahan's Corner. You ask the questions, we answer them live right here on Facebook. How to pay your subcontractors is a percentage of the invoice, or potentially set up a piece rate pay system, or pay for performance as they call it now, for your team. Dan, great question. Please drop your questions in the chat or in the Facebook groups, and we will definitely get these on here live and update them inside the Facebook group to help you go out and outlearn your competition for this upcoming season. Mike Callahan with Callahan's Corner.